Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar. Today, we will be talking about how to inform your product roadmap and prioritize your backlog with high quality customer feedback data. Before we start, just a couple of general housekeeping notes. If you have anything to ask us about any of the topics that are covered today, or just about customer feedback or communication tips in general, please submit your questions in the open-ended Q&A field in Zoom. You can see that Q&A button in the center at the bottom of the screen, depending on what app you're on. And if we run out of time to answer your questions, don't worry, we'll be sure to follow up with you directly after the webinar. So even if you have a question at the very, very end and you want to squeeze it in, make sure you drop it in there and our team will follow up with you. And we do encourage people to ask questions or discuss in the chat section here. So if you guys want to go ahead and just like throw your favorite emoji in the chat section, so I know you guys are alive, that would be great. And yeah, I think that's it from housekeeping tips here. All right, we got a couple of people dropping some emojis in. Yeah, okay, great, amazing. Cool. So we're gonna go ahead and do some quick intros. On your end, you should see a poll that pops up, hopefully here, asking you a little bit more about yourself. So go ahead and fill that out so we can get a feel for our audience here today. So pretty quick questions here. What's your role and did you attend our last webinar? And go ahead and get that filled out. Amazing. We've got some people dropping in. A lot of product people. Our people are in the house here. Awesome. Yeah, go ahead and keep filling that out. I won't hold things up on our end though, and I will just do a quick introduction of myself. My name is Mel Fox. I am a product manager here at Apptentive. I started with Apptentive in January of this year, but I was previously an Apptentive customer managing B2C mobile applications. So I'm just particularly passionate about everything we're about to talk about today. A couple of other things about me. I run my own business on the side called Work for Your Beer. If we have any beer people in the audience here, I perform as an aerialist on the big metal hoop that hangs from the ceiling, like Cirque du Soleil style. And I also have a corgi named Sir Pancake Bacon Fox. He is my only child. So that's it about me. I'm going to throw it over to Lu to introduce herself as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Mel. Hi, guys. My name is Lu. I also started in January, and I also am a previous customer. So I started in Apptentive in January as a senior PM. And then prior to that, I was in the digital banking space for about 5 years as a customer of Apptentive, which is awesome. Over that time, I've gotten to play a number of different personas, if you will. First, as a developer who implemented Apptentive. Next, as a product owner who managed interactions and prioritized all of the SDK updates. And then as a PM who actually got to manage the partnership with Apptentive and the reseller agreements that we had with our customers. So I've gotten to wear several hats amongst my time with Apptentive. And outside of work, I have a Schnauzer poodle named Burrito and a wonderful family and a great bonus son. So that's a little bit about me.
We do require anyone who works for Apptentive, their dog's name to be food related. So we have Pancake and Burrito in the house here.
Burrito does have an Instagram, just in case anyone was wondering. I can fill that in later. She's quite cute.
Yes, I'm here for it. Does Sir Pancake Bacon Fox have an Instagram page? No, he does not. He does have his own tricycle that we ride around in my neighborhood with a little license plate that says Sir Pancake Bacon Fox. That's about it. Anyway, I could talk about my corgi all day. That is not what we are here for. Before we jump into the good stuff here, we did just want to share a little bit about Apptentive. I know we have quite a few customers here today, so go ahead and throw a thumbs up in the chat here if you're a current customer. But there are probably some of you who maybe haven't heard about Apptentive. So for those of you who don't know us, we work with some of the world's largest brands. And as you can see on this slide here, there's just a couple of ones that we work with. But really, like, what does Apptentive do? All of those brands work with us and trust us because at its core, Apptentive is a feedback company all about customer love. Our specific VOC solution really helps these brands collect and measure customer feedback to improve the customer's experience and brand loyalty. And like, Lu and I can vouch to this as being previous customers. It's tried and true. We've seen it happen. We've seen it completely transform our businesses because of that. And we use really intelligent tools and precise targeting, which we'll talk about a little bit later, to help all of these different brands capture actionable emotions and feedback from the 90% of consumer voices that are typically missed. Normally, you really only hear from about 10% of your customers, and normally it's the cranky ones, right? But we want to take that feedback that we're able to gather and turn that into action. So you'll see a little bit more of our platform in this webinar, but I just want to give a brief overview of who we are before we dig into things. And it's so nice to see all the thumbs up in the comment section of our current customers. So great to have everyone. Okay, so quick agenda here. We already did introductions, but we will have some quick trivia questions for you here. We'll then hit on the importance of feedback, prioritizing your requests, creating effective roadmaps, and then hitting on our key takeaways and having time for a Q&A session at the end as time allows. So yeah, we've got a jam-packed agenda. So I'll just throw it over to Lu to take us through some fun trivia questions. Lu?
Awesome. So if you came to the last webinar, you know that we like to kick these off with trivia questions. And last time around, we stayed close to Mel's heart with some beer trivia. And although I'm not an avid beer drinker or even nerd like Mel, I am a big fan of wine. So we are going to stay a little bit on theme here with some wine trivia questions. There will not be any prizes today, but you will definitely win cool points from us if you get these questions right. So no pressure. So jumping right over, you should see another poll pop up. But question number 1, as of 2021, which country is the leading producer of wine? Ooh, interesting. I'm seeing a lot for the US.
We do make some good wine here. You're in California right now, so
I am in California. In fact, I'm going to the Napa Valley this afternoon. So
very
perfect. Yeah. Okay, well, the correct answer is Italy. So shout out to the 19% of you that got that one right. Bonus points for you all. Question number 2. What is the world's most popular planted grape variety? Most planted grape variety.
This was a trickier one. We had 5 answers.
Surprised me, actually. Totally surprised me.
It surprised me too.
Okay.
But not our audience, apparently.
Not our audience. Oh, well, we're tiptoeing a line. Okay. Well, the correct answer was Cab Sav, and it looks like we were split almost 50-50 on Cab Sav and Chardonnay. So I actually had guessed Chardonnay too. So no blames there. I'll take it. One final thought for you all. If you worked with us before, you know we love a really good gift game. And last time around, we used Shift Creek's gifts. And although no one could see, I actually showed up for support of Mel in a Schitt's Creek t-shirt. So love that. I don't have an Office t-shirt today, but you will notice throughout this talk that we've landed on Office gifts. So do we have any Office fans joining us today? Anyone?
I'm really hoping we can convert some of these not reallys into Office fans at the end of today.
A little concerned. Yes, nice. Awesome. Well, cool. I will hand it back over to Mel to kick things off.
Awesome. So I always want to kick off with the importance of why you actually need customer feedback. Hopefully, I'm just preaching to the choir here. But we do like to highlight 3 main reasons. 1, to create a better customer experience. 2, to nurture customer relationships and make them feel heard. We'll talk a little bit more about like humanizing how you communicate to your customers later, but like making someone feel heard is extremely important. And then finally, to accurately measure customer satisfaction. So all of these things are important to note, but really what it comes down to is a focus on customer loyalty, right? You want your customers to trust you, to advocate for you, and to continue to buy from you, right? But really what we want to hit on is how do you get that customer feedback? So If you were in our last webinar, I talked about this at a very high level. This time I'm going to go a little bit deeper into each category here, but we have some best practices that we wanted to highlight around getting high quality feedback. So planning your surveys, mastering the micro survey, and then targeting your audience appropriately. So we'll just go ahead and jump right in here. First things first, planning out your surveys. Planning is a crucial part of having a solid customer feedback plan. If you're constantly being reactive, you will not get the best possible feedback. So add it into your content calendar, into your task management system, whatever it may be, and then hold yourself or your teammates accountable. We do that here at Apptentive. Like, we literally talk about customer feedback all the time here, but we have a specific strategic meeting where we say, hey, what do we want to execute on in this upcoming month? And let's get it in the calendar and make sure that we are reviewing results together as a team, analyzing the appropriate data, and then planning what we want to be learning next. So this is probably the simplest out of everything we'll talk about today, but I just like to emphasize it because if it's not in the calendar, it won't get done, at least if you're anything like me. So second thing on the list here is mastering the micro survey. So you might be thinking, what the heck is a micro survey? I've never heard this term. It's pretty much exactly what it sounds like, a survey that is short and sweet with the expectation that you'll get a higher response rate due to the low level of effort to take the survey. You guys know if someone sends you a survey and there's 35 questions, like the likelihood that you'll actually knock out all 35 questions are pretty low. So some tips and tricks that we have here. Your questions should be short and clear. You need to structure the survey, or it's recommended that you structure the survey to include one primary question and one follow-up question. And in a lot of instances, that follow-up question is open-ended, which gives you really, really good qualitative data that you may not get if you just said, I'm just going to ask one question, right? And then finally, using micro surveys can help avoid overwhelming users and ultimately increase engagement with your survey and with your product at the end of the day. So highly recommend testing out micro surveys, especially in a mobile environment. You don't have that much time to really like capture the attention of your audience as they're switching through different mobile apps. So highly recommend mastering the micro survey and testing things out on your end. Other good best practices for writing surveys. First, always set a goal or a hypothesis. What are you actually looking to learn? This recommendation is particularly important when you're planning out your surveys, right? Hey, this is the survey I want to run. This is my hypothesis. This is what I'm looking to learn. It's just a part of that process, right? Always remember that your audience is human. Instead of writing like an engineer or like a tech geek, which we all are in some form or fashion if you're on this call, we really want you to humanize your questions for your audience. Whenever I first joined the position that I actually worked with Apptentive as a customer, our engineers were writing every piece of content for our audience that was not tech savvy. And it was really, really apparent that we saw this really like different emotional response and engagement once we just twisted how we were saying things to say, okay, you may not understand this tech language, but now we're speaking like humans. The next thing here is don't be afraid of open-ended questions. These questions are far more valuable than most people realize. And again, it gives you that qualitative feedback that you just may not be able to get with a yes or no or a multiple choice answer. Also use caution when requiring responses. Some folks may want to skip over questions that they are unsure of. So if you require a response, it should be a really, really important question that has to be answered for you to get that additional insight for the rest of the survey. Sometimes people will just be trying to get through quickly. Maybe they'll skip over something, you know, you get the red flash that, hey, this question is required, and then you get an abandoned survey. So just be very intentional about what needs to be required versus what's optional. And then finally, avoid leading questions. So try to remove any bias or expectations you may have when writing questions to ensure that you're getting a completely accurate reflection of feedback from your audience. It's easier said than done. I think in some instances you might have some like bias just out of the gate where you're trying to think, what do I want to learn? How do I want to like ask this question? But just be aware of that. Like you may be leading the witness in some areas. All right. And here at Apptentive, we try to make things as easy as possible for you to get started with well-written surveys. So that's why we offer a variety of templates to get you up and running in no time. So I mentioned you'll see a little bit of our product in this webinar. Here we are in our surveys portion of the product. And as you can see there, I was able to get a sample template set up that was around future feature research. So this is super important to have some level of structure, whether it's our templates or your own templates. Not only does it allow you to be efficient, but it allows you to be consistent, which is arguably more important in some ways. So we always say there's a template for that. We've got templates for that so that it can help you with your market research skills, especially if you are running on small resources, which I feel like any product manager in here probably is, wearing 87 hats and doing all the things. So as much as we can help, we try to do our best. All right. Now into targeting. You don't have to send every survey to every customer. And in fact, you should probably not do that. Leveraging those micro surveys to be able to follow up with specific customers is super, super important. Not only does it relieve survey fatigue, but it also allows you to just get the right feedback from the right people, which we talk about a lot, right? Get the right feedback from the right people at the right time. And we do have a really interesting feature on our end that we call response targeting. And I'm just going to show you a little demo here on how easy it is to actually use response targeting to display a follow-up survey to a very targeted audience. So in this example, let's say we previously ran a survey called Getting to Know You. And in that survey, we learned what kind of music genres our audience likes. So let's say we want to learn more about our audience who likes emo music because they're arguably the coolest audience members. And let's say, avoid any other genres that folks have said. So this is a great way to follow up and ask, like, who is your favorite emo band? Which is exactly what I'm going to ask you in the chat right now, because I'm particularly passionate about this subject. And I don't know if we have any other emo fans in the group, but if you do, drop it in the chat. And just as a heads up, this is totally a nod towards our Customer Love Stories podcast that our CEO Roby hosts. I was fortunate enough to be a guest. We talked about my very strong passion for emo music. So now you're all along on this ride for me. And I'm seeing no responses. Does no one like emo music? 9 Inch Nails? Is that 9 Inch Nails? Do they count as emo? They're a little more rock. Death Cab for Cutie. All right, yeah, here we go. See, we all bond. Good Charlotte. Yeah, old school. Okay. Yeah, I'm here for this. Okay, cool. So again, response targeting, it's just such a simple way to get directly to the audience members that you know you need to get to. And in this sample, we're actually following up with a survey, but you can follow up with a note that's like, hey, I heard you like emo music. Did you know there's a concert coming up? Yes, no, like something super, super simple like that. But yeah. Lots of really good stuff. And I know I'm cruising through things, but that's because we have a lot of great content. And at this point in the game, you've wrote a great survey. You've got it in front of the right people using that specific targeting. And now I'm going to pass it off to Lu to walk you through the really good stuff. So I will throw it over to Lu.
Oh, no pressure, Mel. Love that. Cool. Okay. So sometimes it can be a little overwhelming just how many different methodologies there are for prioritization. I know I'm a little bit of a medium nerd, and I love like scrolling through all of the content there for product managers. And it can be really overwhelming how many different concepts and methodologies there are for prioritization and for road mapping in particular. There are a few notable that always seem to rise to the top that you might be familiar with. The first one being RICE, so reach, impact, confidence, and effort. Moscow is another popular one. So must have, should have, could have, won't have. Cano has come up a couple of times in my recent medium investigations, and that includes delights, performance needs, and basic needs. But not every methodology fits the need of every business. And sometimes product teams, and most of the time from what I've seen, put their own spin on one of these methodologies or create their own to really align with their business and what their business needs so that they're accurately reflecting customer feedback. So out of curiosity, you should see a poll pop up here soon. How do you guys prioritize your roadmap today? Are you using methodology? Or are you just using a spreadsheet? Let's get some answers. Nice. Ooh, seeing a lot of love for old school spreadsheet. Love that. I'm actually a big fan of that, but I've been trying to get out of it. Cool. Wow, an old school spreadsheet takes the cake there. Okay. So at a high level, regardless of the methodology used to prioritize your roadmap, it's really critical to understand the value of what you're looking to deliver versus the complexity and effort required to deliver it. High value, low effort items can be easy or quick wins, as we call them, that you can kind of fit or squeeze into the roadmap next to those items that are high value and high effort, which tend to be strategic initiatives. That way you can be constantly delivering on those quick wins and continuously delivering feedback or value to your customers and to the rest of the business as well. But sometimes it's a little bit challenging to take that customer feedback that you're getting from surveys or just customer feedback in general. Sometimes there can be so much of it. Distilling it down in a meaningful way that helps inform the priority and the complexity and associate to value can be really tricky. I know one of the ways that I used to do this as an old school spreadsheet person was that I looked at the quantitative and then the qualitative feedback. So the quantitative feedback, I used to run a survey that had 2 questions. The first question was a single select, which was just what is your biggest pain point in the application that helped kind of guide us towards the next priority. And that we use as quantitative feedback to say, okay, so this is the highest priority for our customers. And then that qualitative feedback of the actual voice of what people are saying about their pains and what people are saying about the application, we use to help kind of inform the experience so that we could understand how people were looking for things as we were in the discovery and the product discovery phase, so that we wouldn't be missing things before we went into testing out what we were prototyping or building. So jumping right in, ooh, it looks like the slide is loading. We have a quick, Madeline to the rescue. So we have a quick demo of how we're doing it today at Apptentive. When we run a survey, we typically take those survey results and either take them from insights or from exports or from our survey reporting specifically. And we're associating them to our roadmap items as insights. So for every single piece of feedback that we get, we can do this as a bulk export or individually as we see fit for things that fit with our current roadmap. We're able to take those and quantitatively say that this is the kind of feedback that we're getting as insights. We can associate them directly to a customer so we can understand what that looks like. And we're using a really cool tool that I've already gone on a spiel about today, which is hysterical. But it's called Jira Product Discovery. So in the past, I had used road mapping tools like Product Board, AHA, I'd used Smart Sheets, as well as just your good old Google Sheet. But we've started using Jira Product Discovery. It is spectacular and I love it so much. I believe it is still technically in a beta, but it solves like all of my big goals and dreams from the perspective of road mapping tools. So if this loads, we do have a GIF here of what that looks like today. It includes taking exports or insights directly out of our survey reporting and then associating them to a roadmap item and then ranking the impact of that feedback that we get so that we can weight it across our customers and across other roadmap items. So this slide does not want to participate, so we'll just move on and we'll send it out after to make sure. We can even do a quick Loom video for everyone. But at Apptentive, we use our own version of a score, and there are lots of things that we include, not just our customer feedback score. We look at things like TAM. Are we expanding our total addressable market? Are we realizing more of it with these new features? We look at revenue opportunities, but one of the scores that we've created that we love for customer feedback is the customer feedback score, and it is based on customer impact. So the number of customer requests that we get, which we are getting directly out of our surveys and message center feedback, as well as the customers impacted. So future customers, when we roll out this feature, how many people will it reach? And then insights. So the number of insights we have, that qualitative feedback of people who have asked for it in a survey, given feedback, reached out via message center and requested it directly, or reached out via email, or we have lots of great customer conversations. We have lots of impacts from our client advisory board and from just getting to meet you all in person or over Zoom for coffee and getting to hear more about your pain points and what your job is like day to day. And then, of course, we have to associate that to effort so we can understand where our quick wins are versus the strategic initiatives. And so that's how we're doing it a little bit today. So the next slide here, Mel, would you mind hitting forward for me? It looks like it when we quit. Thank you.
Our GIF game is
carrying us
today.
Love it.
Well,
perhaps. Well, it looks like more images here. Oh, there we go. Okay. So this is a screenshot of where we're prioritizing our roadmap. So we have that customer score that is over on the right column. And then we have our number of insights, our customer impact, which is the aggregate of the number of customers as well as the future customer reach, and then our effort score as well. And then based on those three values, we get our customer feedback score, which we use to help prioritize our roadmap. And then we have our actual roadmap and we stack rank it based on that customer feedback score. We also have a couple of other things, like I mentioned, like total addressable market and revenue impacts, as well as like customer pain points, operations efficiencies, all of those good things. But we're able to see a roadmap that reflects our actual customer feedback that we get from surveys. And so then when we go into each of these roadmap items, we have all of those insights there where we can understand kind of what people are saying about the product, so it can help inform where we move in the discovery process. This is Jira product discovery, as I mentioned. Chef's kiss. It is spectacular. It's totally customizable views. We love to be able to see the delivery progress on these. One of the big things about road mapping is it's ever iterative, and as long as you're agile, things change, especially as the market or customer needs shift. And so it's really important that you can have a roadmap that reflects the accurate place of not only the priority scores as things change with new insights, new information, but also of the delivery progress. So you can see where you're at and you don't have to manually go in and update those every single time something changes.
And I will note there too, you could see like the now, next, later. We are extremely agile in our organization. And so we are much more focused on, hey, what's going on right now? What is upcoming? So like next quarter type of work. And then later is that longer term roadmap that we have. But all of the things that have been placed in the roadmap have been evaluated, put through that matrix, and we understand like once something gets completed, how to close that feedback loop specifically with our customers, because we have all of those insights attached. So I just want to call that out because I know that sometimes people get stuck in this weird, like we're agile, but we're waterfall. This is a really great way to do that, and something that Lu brought into the organization that I thought, wow, this is like a really nice way to visualize this and still understand where we're going, but not commit to like any hard dates. I am sure you guys have that pain point of everyone always asking, but when will it be done? And this has worked really well with our organization just to give them that visual of where we're going and why.
Yeah, absolutely. We can definitely talk to that a little bit more too, because sometimes you have to have dates and there are things that are time sensitive that you have to get out. There's definitely some strategies around helping negotiate that and also just reflecting that are really helpful. But thank you, Mel. And as I mentioned, road mapping and feedback is a constant process. You want to be constantly validating your roadmap as well as where you're headed with your customers. And so one of the things that we do is as we make changes to our roadmap, we have a client advisory board where we actually speak to our customers once a quarter, and we make sure that they can have an opportunity to have a voice in our product and stack rank all of the features that we have on our roadmap to make sure that they're aligned, or if they're not aligned, we can understand why the priority is shifted and where the customer need and the pain points are today that we can work to solve for. We also do that with surveys. So we'll run surveys on things that we're working on to understand where the energy is, especially when you get down to a more granular level. For example, you can know that survey logic, for example, is a big feature that everyone wants, but there are multiple facets to survey logic, like branching versus conditional logic, and a few other areas as well. So being able to get into the nitty-gritty and ask for specific feedback around which areas of a feature people have the most kind of energy around too, to help validate. So it's constant iteration, and having some sort of process, especially prioritization framework, that is always updating and can be in real time, really helps to ensure that your roadmap stays up to date and is clear with priorities. So to recap here, planning out your customer feedback is essential. As Mel mentioned, if it's not on a calendar, it's really hard to get done sometimes. And making sure that you're planning and taking into consideration how you're writing your surveys, being intentional with who you're talking to, and ensuring that you're constantly asking for that feedback is really important, that actually getting that feedback and building those meaningful relationships with your customers. And then there's a method to the madness when you're prioritizing your feedback. You have to find the methodology that works for you and your business, but having something that can be constantly updating and always validating with your customers is super important. So you're closing on that feedback loop and you're constantly validating that you're building the right thing. And then validating, as I mentioned, you should always be iterating and always be reaching out to your customers and building those relationships so you can understand where the market shifts and where customer pain points shift as well. Okay, I'll hand it over to Mel.
So I know we just ran through a lot of content in 30 minutes. We do have time for Q&A. So if you do have questions, feel free to drop them into that Q&A bucket. We are happy to dive as deep as you want us to. But in the meantime, I did want to let you guys know, if you are a customer, if you have any questions about any of the features or functionality that we talked about today, reach out to your CSM. If you're not a customer, choose your own adventure here. We do have a 30-day free trial that's available, where you can go into our platform and look at all of the really interesting tools that we have to be able to gather that customer feedback directly from your audience. Or you can schedule a more in-depth demo as well. We have that available for you guys. But those links, I think, got dropped in the chat again. So feel free to tap on those if you're interested. I would love for us to get into some Q&A. So we had a couple of questions already come in here. Lu, the first one is for you, which is, what is the name of the roadmap tool you use? I think I heard Jira something. Is there an integration with Jira and creating tickets from your roadmap? I will let you talk and geek out about your product discovery.
I love it so much. So Jira Product Discovery, I think, is still technically in a pilot with Jira as part of their labs program. It is beautiful. We can send out a link as well. It is spectacular. It solves all of my problems. And the next question here that we have is, there is a priority assessment screen at the end of the gift you sent out. What application is that view in? That is also Jira Product Discovery. I love it because it connects directly to all of our delivery items. So all of our epics, initiatives, all of our tickets can actually reflect in real time to our actual roadmap, which is amazing. If you've ever done any Jira administration, you know that creating like a new field is a little bit chaotic. And in Jira Product Discovery, it's literally hit create new field and then add your emoji. So it's always beautiful. I really enjoy it. It's been a really fun product to work with. And they also have a really great community as well, where people are talking about how they're using that product to better inform their roadmaps and build really cool views for different sets of stakeholders as well. Next question up here is, I might have missed it, but does Apptentive have a closed loop ticketing system built in that allows for responding to customers, e.g. case management system? We do have a message center integration with Zendesk. So when someone uses Message Center, it sends the response over to Zendesk, so a ticket is automatically created. I've actually used that as a customer before. It was super helpful. Mel, do you have anything else you want to include there?
So we mentioned Message Center. We haven't really talked a lot about that functionality that we have, but Message Center essentially acts as like a helper or a chat bot on your application or your website. And you can close the loop right in there as well. So if someone's reaching out with direct feedback or help, you can close the feedback loop right there. Otherwise, we do have some interesting ways of just like making sure that you close the feedback loop in general. We have really strong like tagging systems on the back end. So if you have someone requesting a different feature and finally you've made that feature, great. Now you can communicate directly to all of those customers based on either the qualitative or quantitative feedback that they've given you in the past. And that's with response targeting. We talked about that a little bit earlier. That I think is probably where we're at with functionality there. The integrations I think are a really good opportunity if you are using something like a Zendesk to be able and have that closed loop. Yeah. Can tickets be routed to different teams?
In Jira product discovery, yes. We still use the teams field out of advanced road mapping. And then it can associate directly there, which is really helpful. And then you also get that initiative level if you're using Jira Advanced Road Mapping as well. Can Jpd be connected to GitLab? I have no idea. That's a great question. I know they are still in a closed beta, so they're working through a number of integrations at the moment. But I don't know. It's a great question. Sorry, I couldn't help you more there.
A good one that came in the chat right now. How do you balance obtaining feedback without distracting your users from advancing down your funnel? I mean, we hit on this with planning things out, right? And also with targeting, but what we didn't really talk about was like where we're introducing surveys in their journey, right? And so I think there's a lot of trial and error with our customers to understand where exactly they should be placing these interactions, either micro surveys or notes to be engaging with their customers. But you are able to create any sort of event that occurs in your app. So I like to give the example of like someone just checked out, like they've just purchased something, boom, they bought something. Now would be a really good time to say, hey, did you enjoy your shopping experience, right? But I've had bad experiences with this with other tools where I'll be on a website trying to fill out an HVAC form because my HVAC just broke down in the middle of the summer in Charlotte. And as I'm filling out the form, I get a prompt that's like, you were enjoying this website? And I'm like, no, I'm not right now because you're bothering me during this process. And so having that ability to like hyper target where those interactions come up is really important, but a lot of it is testing, right? Because you have to balance getting the quantity of responses you want in the area you want with to this person's point without, you know, distracting them from continuing to go down the funnel. So it's a lot of trial and error, I would say. Lou, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, a couple of things. So I was actually talking to a customer yesterday who had mentioned that they were essentially just going in and kind of testing out an interaction and moving it through their funnel to find where it was going to get the best response rate, and moving it one step down the funnel went from 3% response rate to I think 28% response rate, which is a huge jump. So sometimes it really is just trial and error. I know as a customer, one of the things that we did, especially to get feedback about features that we were launching, was that we had our user experience team design the survey into the funnel so that they could user test that when they were prototyping and understand where the best part with the least amount of friction was going to be. It was super light overhead. And then we also had great expectations with developers when we went to build the feature of, okay, this is where we want to make sure we have Apptentive events so that we can target for surveys in the future. And then we always saw really great response rates there just because we were kind of pre-planning that step in and making it a part of the journey and a part of the application and a part of the feature instead of a little bit of an afterthought, which was cool. So a couple more in the chat, it looks like.
We have one, if members leave comments about the app and do not leave their name, is there a way to pull that information to identify the member? Like a softball to us here. Yes, is the answer there. We ask folks, we have the opportunity for our customers to use customer ID in all of their interactions that go out, so that information can be collected and you can still close that feedback loop because you understand like what ID responded to something. Now there's a level of like creepiness you want to avoid, I think, in some of those instances. If people like are expressly saying like, I don't want to provide my name or email, like I don't need to be followed up with. But there is that opportunity. And I think that's really beneficial to a ton of our customers. And it also helps with persona building. Like if you guys have really strong user personas or customer personas that you're advocating for and trying to learn more about, being able to connect all of those dots through the customer ID is really important. Lu, anything else you want to add on that one?
Yeah, you can also set identity outside of customer ID. So as long as you're setting person identity when you engage an event with Apptentive, you're able to track whatever fields you're looking for custom data, as well as like their email address if you'd like. But customer ID is certainly the best way because you can associate it to your own information. And another important call out on customer ID is that it's not something that we need to know. We don't need to know anything that is personally identifying to your user. It's whatever is relevant information for you to be able to uniquely identify that user against your own platform so that you can take our data and our survey responses and make them even more meaningful against the information that you already have about your customers.
Awesome. Guys, so many good questions coming in.
So many good questions. We have one more. How do you prioritize feature backlog versus improvements to existing features prior to product launch?
That's a great question.
It is a great question. Do you want to take a stab or do you want me to?
You go first. I'll tag on after.
Okay, cool. So I think there's a couple of different trails here. I think one is, so if it's prior to product launch, understanding a really clear scope of MVP is important so that you are not constantly iterating and iterating and iterating prior to getting it out. Part of MVP is identifying your hypothesis and then measuring against that and getting that user feedback to understand if you met your hypothesis, you met the mark, you solved the customer problem or not. And if you're constantly iterating before you're able to deliver that product to a customer, you're not ultimately able to validate the feedback to help inform what you build next. So having really clear cut scope for MVP is super important so that you're not, overextending or scope creeping, if you will, on something before it's delivered. And then leveraging your customers and that customer feedback loop after you've launched something or you've delivered the MVP to help understand where the customers have the pain points or have additional requests for the product so that you can prioritize those small increments to a feature. And then another thing is after a product's already launched and you're working on the next best thing or the next thing, next strategic initiative, there are always more iterations to make and you don't want to, software's never done. It's constant iteration. And so that's where you can leverage back and look at your quick wins versus your strategic initiatives. And some of those items that are high value for a specific feature and low effort are really easy to just kind of sneak in with other strategic initiatives. So you can constantly be delivering on customer value and customer feedback as well.
Yeah, I think it's important to just make sure you're baking in that time to one, get the customer feedback. So hey, we're launching this, and whether you're doing actual usability testing or you're just saying, hey, are you enjoying this feature right now? Yes or no? If no, give us more details so we can improve. I think just making sure that you bake that into your go-to-market plan and understand on the engineering side, you'll likely want to ensure that you have resources to continue to iterate where those things pop up. I mean, it's not just bugs, right? You uncover functionality as well. But I think another thing that falls into this too is prioritizing tech debt, which I think Lu and I are both very strong advocates of making sure that our tech debt is as small as we possibly can make it. But that also rolls into your roadmap at some point, right? If it's a big enough initiative, that has to get scheduled to be worked on as well. And it's almost the way I've done this in the past is I would have new feature backlog of items that get prioritized and ranked, and then I would have tech debt and security items. So if we had to work on anything that had PII associated to it, or if we had to do GDPR stuff, or if we just had to update our any version of our code base that needed real hard work, right? I would prioritize that kind of separately and say, okay, I need to make sure that I'm bringing in 2 tech debt items this sprint, because if not, that just piles up and piles up and piles up. And you don't want that, because then you have real crappy code. That was a great question though. The next one says, how far out do you typically plan out your roadmap? Who from your organization do you like to include in your roadmap reviews? Lu, you want to start? You want me to start?
Sure, I can start on this one. So we typically try to keep our roadmap. So we kind of go by quarters. So now is typically the current quarter we're in. Next is the next quarter up. And then our future is about 6 to 18 months past that, depending. We have a pretty good understanding of all of the items that are on the radar, but we want to make sure that we're really flexible there. So we're not communicating things that might not make the roadmap by the time we get to that time frame. And then we have strategic meetings every Thursday. So the first of the month is product strategy. The second of the month is product analytics review. The third of the month is product feedback, where we just talk about customer feedback. And then the last meeting of the month is status updates on all of our roadmap items that are currently in that now column. And in that first meeting in strategy, we have a really cool team that we call the product growth team. It includes stakeholders from all areas of the business. We have customer success, we have support, we have sales representative, and our leadership team as well, so that we can make sure that all stakeholders are understanding and reviewing on a regular basis, and can give their feedback as they see fit. Anything else to add there, Mel?
No, that was great. That was perfect. I knew you'd have a good answer to that. Cool. What else? What else is coming through here? You guys have been doing a great job of asking questions. We had one question that I'm not sure what it means, but I do feel like generally I can talk to it. So it came in through the chat. Can Apptentive surveys be used to gauge SharePoint clicks interactions? And I'm going to talk about this at a event level perspective, because I feel like from a high level perspective, the answer to this is probably yes, but without understanding the use case a little bit deeper. If Apptentive is tracking what is going on, like event-wise in your application or website, we are almost always able to target on specific things. So whether that's a click or a screen pops up, or however you have those events set up on your side or import them into Apptentive, we can pretty much work with anything to make sure that those interactions are brought up in the right way. So I don't know if that's actually answering the question, and whoever wrote that, if you guys want to clarify a little bit more, but I did want to just hit on the topic of like understanding that these types of events. Okay, cool. Yes, it did answer the question. How? Understanding that you can pretty much import whatever types of events you want to have these interactions populate at. It's super, super flexible. And like, even like my team, whenever I was a customer, like if we would launch a new feature, we would make sure that we had the event associated and that it was working properly in Apptentive before we did that. Hey, do you know we have a new feature? Type of call out. So super flexible to use in that front, and it's really easy, like low level of effort from a dev perspective as well, which was always a perk for a product manager. Less dev work, the better. All right. Anything else coming in here, guys? I feel like we had a ton of really good things come in here. If you guys have any other questions, or we maybe missed something in the chat, just make sure you write it down. Our team will absolutely follow up with you. Is there anything else that we can hit on here? Now is your time. It's your time to shine. Okay. Well, honestly, I think Lu and I are just so grateful to be able to have these types of conversations and help anyone who's maybe looking to up their feedback game. We clearly are passionate about this. We are so passionate about this product that we came to work for Apptentive, and we're really, really doing our best to prioritize and create the best product possible on our end. So if you have any other questions, feel free to drop them into the chat. You have the links to the 30-day trial and the demo if you would like to get anything on the calendar and talk a little bit more with our team. We love talking to new people just to understand like where your pain points are and where we can help. We always, I think, from our perspective, can give immediate value literally the day Apptentive is launched, which is really, really cool to see. So measuring that like ROI of what you get from just investing in time with Apptentive is pretty easy, I think. But yeah, thank you guys so much. This was such a great way to spend our Wednesday morning. So anything else from you, Lou?
Nope, I think that's it. Appreciate all the time. I have a lot of fun with this. I love getting to chat with customers and talk about feedback. That's one of my favorite things.
Yeah, we just geek out a little bit. Thank you guys so much for coming, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.